Hey everyone, this is Daphne Tett. So here's that top 5 list for Team Rocket's Pokemon I've been talking about. Not gonna lie, sometimes they were more entertaining than the good guys. Didn't mean I wanted them to win, but I like them. They are just as important to whatever storyline there is as Ash Ketchum himself. In fact, that's why I got the poster of them and not Ash. That's why I've dedicated this list to them. I'm only going up to Unova and then skipping to Alola because I couldn't make it through Kalos and, what I'm trying to say that this isn't an of all time list. Let's just get started. Number 5. Team Rocket has had a lot of Pokemon that were noteworthy and unnoteworthy at the same time, but I could only pick one to fill my number 5 spot. That one is James's Amoonguss. It was just there for the Decalar Islands, and when I say it was just there, I mean it was just there. Now, as a grass type belonging to James, you'd expect it to be all over its trainer. No, it is too good for that. It's just there to surpasses its continue the gagness. Of course, this is a gag that didn't really exist in Black and White because James had no grass types. But still, kudos to you, Amoonguss. You just dared like no Pokemon had just dared before. Number 4. Remember halfway through Hoenn, James caught a Chimecho, and he loved that Chimecho so much that he would actively keep it out of battle, and it would occasionally wrap its tail around James's head. But at the beginning of Battle Frontier, it got sick and James had to leave it with his parents. This segment is not about that Chimecho. I only mention it because James caught a Mime Jr. afterwards, and that Mime Jr. was a better Chimecho than Chimecho ever was. It is the superior make James go into freak out parent mode Pokemon. I could spend this whole sequence ranting about Chimecho, but I'm not, because instead I'm going to tell you why Mime Jr. is better. It's cute, it imitates people in a cute manner, it's pink, who could go wrong with pink, and it's cute. We were graced with Mime Jr.'s adorable presence for 5 whole seasons. Chimecho only got 1.5. You know what, I think I will do the Chimecho rant. It all started in this episode in the middle of season 7 where James told a sob story about how he really wanted a Chimecho as a young lad, and then later in that episode he turns around and there's a Chimecho. Right there. I was immediately like, I'm calling BS on that. You can't do that. Life doesn't work that way. It even got its own place in the motto, in that episode, right after Wobbuffet. Wobbuffet had to earn that place in the motto. Even Mime Jr. took a few episodes, but Chimecho just barged in on day 1 all like, hey guys, I'm on the team now. Then they just held that against it for 3 years. Earlier in that episode, the Magikarp salesman sold James a Hoppet painted blue. And to be honest, if he kept that, I would have been totally cool with it. Whenever Chimecho came on screen, I would just cover its face up with my thumb. It doesn't even have any sweet moves, or it did, and it just didn't use them, because it never battled. Take the number of times Wobbuffet battled and multiply by 0. That's how many times Chimecho battled. Mime Jr., on the other hand, had Teeter Dance. Just imagine the rest of Team Rocket and basically everyone in his presence doing this like stupid teeter dance because of this little thing, doing the little moves with little arms, and I thought it was funny. What I'm trying to say is that Mime Jr. is better because Chimecho is way, way worse. And Mime Jr. is adorable. It's like I always say, mime over chime. Number 3. For number 3, I picked Jessie's Dustox, and to be honest, I don't remember the exact reason why. It's just a smattering of reasons that all contribute to a central point. But I'll tell you those things. For one thing, design. Dustox has one of my favorite designs. It's got the pop colors, your magenta, your yellow, your lime green. It's got the mildly creepy in the eyes and the hardcore on the wings, and poison typing. Take that, beautiful eye. My second reason is something I like to call the deciding factor, and I think you've already heard me talk about this, is in the episode where Cascoon evolves. It starts with May's Silcoon evolving into Beautifly, and now Jessie's convinced that her precious Silcoon will evolve into a Beautifly as well. Except James and Meowth know full well that ain't no Cascoon, and it ain't evolving into no Beautifly. Most of the episode is just them worrying about the impending wrath of Jessie. Then Cascoon evolves, and then it becomes the deciding factor, not whether it'll evolve into a Beautifly or a Dustox, but how Jessie will react when it evolves into a Dustox. I prepared myself for a Jess-splosion, and then James threw a blanket over it, and Meowth began running around in a Beautifly costume, shouting, Beautifly, Beautifly, Beautifly. If that isn't comedy gold, just wait until Jessie finds out. I will never forget that look of slack-jawed shock on her face that turned into elation? And not fury? It was one of my top 10 anime plot twists. Really, the most memorable thing about Dustox is that with all the times Viper battled, whenever Dustox came out, my immediate thought was, ooh, Jessie means business. That was my catchphrase for Dustox. I give certain Pokemon catchphrases based on what made them so memorable. Some of Team Rocket's include, when in doubt, Yanmega for Yanmega, no time wasted, no sandwiches needed for Pumpkaboo, Mime over Chime, as you already know, for Mime Jr., and, but first, for Cacnea. And speaking of Cacnea, number 2, Cacnea. How many Pokemon do you know that can hug James with one arm and use Pin Missile with the other? It only happened in one episode, but that's the entire basis of my argument for Cacnea. It's all because of a gag I used to call the Grass type gag until Marini showed up and changed my entire Pokeworld view. I already talked about it with James's Amoonguss. It's where James's Pokemon just want to hug him instead of battling, because he is a good trainer who treats his Pokemon right. Out of the 3 grass types who gave the grass type gag its name, I think Cacnea did it best, because Victory Bell looked like it just wanted to eat James, and really by the time Carnivine came along it was just getting old. Like, what was Carnivine doing? And why was it doing a gag that Cacnea was still there doing just fine? And then there's Marini. My next point was going to be that Cacnea was the only affectionate one, unlike Victory Bell, but Marini had a legit crush on James. On one hand, I don't blame it. On the other, it makes me feel some weird things, like, is this allowed? I really do love Marini, but I just like Cacnea better because it was affectionate and not weird about it. I think that it has to do with the fact that Cacnea has functional arms. You know what else it does with those functional arms? Some sweet moves. It's got Pin Missile with one fisting option, Hammer Arm, which was cool on several occasions, it's Sandstorm for being the escapist rogue of Season 10. All of these sweet moves, and James gives it up for what? Drain Punch? Just like with Glalie, this actually would have been a perfect point in time to get rid of a different Pokemon. In this case, it's a Viper. Like, what was the Viper even doing for her Diamond and Pearl, besides being the Jessie means business Pokemon after Dustox was released? The important thing is that Cacnea has always been one of my longtime faves. I'd almost made it to number 1, but now I regret even considering just because of who my number 1 is. But first, an honorable mention. Confession time! I picked out all of my top 5 before watching Sun and Moon, and I still haven't finished Sun and Moon, but I still wanted to put Marini somewhere. It almost bumped Cacnea out of the number 2 spot because unlike Cacnea or Victory Bell or Carnivine, Marini had something resembling a backstory, a reason for all the unnecessary affection. Given it was a reason that makes me uncomfortable, which is why I didn't make it to number 2, but a reason nonetheless. And now for number 1. Number 1. Do I even need to say it? Where to begin with all of the ways Wobbuffet is a blessing to this show? To put it simply, Wobbuffet debuted in Season 3, Episode 30, Tricks of the Trade, which premiered on May 4th, 2000. That is to say, Wobbuffet's been on Team Rocket longer than I've been alive. How's Wobbuffet managed to make himself a staple on Team Rocket for so long? Well, it's quite simple, really. The answer is that Wobbuffet makes some pretty fine comic relief. He just has this random goofball personality that I can't help but love. And those of you who have seen the show should also know that he has a tendency to interrupt. That was his trademark gag, just popping out of his Pokeball for no real reason. Misty Psyduck did it first, but Jessie's Wobbuffet did it better. It was funniest when you didn't see him for the whole episode, and then just as Team Rocket was blasting off, you'd hear this really quiet wah. Something else Wobbuffet did that not many people talk about, but I still think is pretty funny, is dressing up in various costumes all the time, because what is Team Rocket without those disguises? Here's why I present to you the screenshots. I have some funny Pokemon screenshots in this album on my iPod, and most of them are in Wobbuffet in different costumes. And here they are now. Here's Wobbuffet in a Blissey costume. Here's Wobbuffet getting mobbed by people in a Blissey costume. This one I can't explain. This one doesn't need explaining. Oh, here's the Dippy screenshot I was looking for the top 5 home video with the Talo on Ash's arm. And here's Brock hitting the jackpot. But getting back to the Wobbuffet and the costumes, the only thing better than Wobbuffet in a fedora is Wobbuffet in a tuxedo. But my favorite has to be Wobbuffet in a dress and pigtails. This screenshot was taken during the intro for Season 11, Episode 3, the episode after Cacnea was given away. And notice how Cacnea's still there. It does me a real big sad. Here's Wobbuffet in the best sunglasses this world has to offer. Here's the return of the dress and pigtails. And here's Don's Pokemon getting really mad at Pikachu for stealing their Poffums. Ambipom will not hesitate to use that double hit. And here's Team Rocket forgetting that this is a kids show. I think that's it for the Team Rocket screenshots. A couple of my other faves include Wobbuffet dressed up as Max and Season 17, Episode 8, Grooming Furfrou. There's one scene where Wobbuffet gets all the outfits, and it's the best scene in X and Y. I wish I could show it to you now, but I don't think I have the time, and really pulling it up would set off the pacing of this video. Something else that Wobbuffet does, albeit rarely, that garners my respect is battle. You'd be surprised at how powerful Wobbuffet is for a comic relief character. Normally, your comic relief guy can't do squat on the battlefield. Then there's Wobbuffet. He can't attack, but as Brock said in his debut episode, I had no idea Wobbuffet could have a counterattack that strong. And it shows. For example, there's this one episode in Season 5 called Address Unknown where Wobbuffet counters a hidden power and sends the good guys into another dimension. In the last scene of Diamond and Pearl, Team Rocket are in their balloon and Meowth gets mad at Wobbuffet for some reason, starts using Fury Swipes on him, and he uses a counter so powerful it blows up the balloon. That is the only time I can remember that Team Rocket blasted themselves off. There's one episode at the beginning of X and Y where Wobbuffet just dominates because Team Rocket had no other Pokemon. I could go on and on and on about Wobbuffet dominating, but the problem is Wobbuffet didn't battle all that often. I think I already mentioned that I read in a comment somewhere that if Team Rocket just used Wobbuffet more often, they would have captured Pikachu and taken over the Poke universe by now. Okay, so Wobbuffet's article in Bulbapedia says, and I quote, Wobbuffet is used occasionally for battles. Wobbuffet's knowledge of moves like Counter and Mirror Coat comes in handy. Comes in handy is not enough to describe Wobbuffet. He's the Deflector Shield. I really should wrap this up. I'm running out of pages in my book. In conclusion, Wobbuffet is the best thing to happen to Team Rocket and the Pokemon anime, like, ever. That's why he's on the poster. I don't really have an explanation for Inkay, though. Well, that's it for all my rambling about which Team Rocket Pokemon I like best. If you like my opinions, be sure to like and subscribe, and if you don't subscribe anyway, up next video should be Miitopia tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Dangan Island also coming up pretty soon. Goodbye. So long. I've seen whatever.